I woke up to knocking. Not the kind of knock you get from a neighbor borrowing sugar or a delivery driver running late. This was urgent. Desperate. The kind of knock that makes your heart stop before your brain even catches up. It was 6 in the morning. The sun hadn't even fully risen yet. Through my bedroom window, I could see the pale grey light of dawn creeping across the sky, painting everything in that cold, uncertain glow that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. I'd been dreaming about my late husband, Robert. In the dream, we were young again, dancing in our old kitchen to some song I couldn't quite remember. His hands were warm. His smile was real. Then the knocking pulled me out of that memory and back into my empty house. I'm 71 years old. I've lived in this house for 43 years. I raised my son here. I buried my husband from here. I know every creak in the floorboards, every draft that comes through the windows in winter, every shadow that stretches across the walls when the sun sets. But that morning, everything felt different. Wrong. The knocking came again. Harder this time. I pulled on my robe and shuffled to the front door, my knees aching the way they always do first thing in the morning. Through the peephole, I saw him. My grandson, Tyler. 17 years old, tall and lanky, with his father's dark hair and my eyes. But something about him looked off. His face was pale. His eyes were wide, darting around like he expected something terrible to jump out at him from the bushes. I opened the door. Tyler? What are you doing here so early? Is everything okay? He didn't answer right away. He just stood there on my porch, breathing hard like he'd run all the way from his house 5 miles away. His hands were shaking. I could see it even though he tried to shove them into his jacket pockets. Grandma, he said, his voice cracking. Don't go out today. I blinked at him. What? Just, please. Don't go out. Don't leave the house. Stay inside. Lock the doors. Don't answer if anyone comes by. My stomach twisted. Tyler, you're scaring me. What's going on? He looked over his shoulder, back toward the street, like he thought someone might be watching. Then he looked at me again, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Terror. Pure, unfiltered terror. I can't explain right now, he said. But you have to trust me. Please. Just stay inside today. Promise me. I wanted to press him. I wanted to demand answers. But something in his voice, something in the way his whole body was trembling, stopped me. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't teenage dramatics. This was real. Tyler. Promise me, Grandma. I swallowed hard. Okay. I promise. He nodded, relief flooding his face for just a second. Then he turned and ran. Not walked. Ran. Down my driveway, across the street, disappearing into the early morning shadows before I could even call after him. I stood there in my doorway, cold air biting at my skin, my heart hammering in my chest. What the hell was happening? If you've ever had that feeling, that deep, primal instinct that something is very, very wrong, then you know exactly what I felt standing there. And if you're watching this from wherever you are in the world, I want you to drop a comment and tell me where you're tuning in from. Because this story, what I'm about to tell you, it could happen to anyone. Anywhere. And I need you to hear it all the way through. Before I go any further, I want to ask you something. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt betrayed by the people you loved most, hit that subscribe button. Because there are more stories like this one, stories about survival, about revenge, about finding your strength when everything falls apart. Check the description box below for more. You're going to want to hear them. Now, let me take you back to that morning. Because what happened next, it shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. I closed the door. Locked it. Then I stood there in my hallway, trying to make sense of what just happened. Tyler had never done anything like this before. He was a good kid. Quiet. A little shy. He played video games, got decent grades, spent most of his time with his head down, trying to stay out of his father's way. His father. My son. Raymond. God, even thinking his name made my chest tighten. Raymond had always been difficult. Even as a child, there was something cold about him. Something calculating. He wasn't like other kids who threw tantrums or cried when they didn't get their way. No, Raymond would just watch. Wait. And then he'd find a way to get exactly what he wanted, no matter who he had to manipulate or hurt to get it. I told myself it was a phase. I told myself he'd grow out of it. But he didn't. He just got better at hiding it. When Raymond was 25, he married a woman named Angela. Sweet girl. Kind. She worked as a nurse, and she had this way of lighting up a room just by walking into it. I thought maybe she'd be good for him. Maybe she'd soften those hard edges. But 3 years into their marriage, Angela was gone. Died in a car accident, they said. Single car collision on a back road late at night. Raymond said she'd been drinking, that she'd lost control. There was an investigation, but nothing ever came of it. The case was closed. Accidental death. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe my son wasn't capable of what I suspected. But there was something about the way he talked about her after she died. No grief. No guilt. Just this cold, empty acceptance. Like she'd been a problem, and now the problem was solved. Tyler was only 2 years old when his mother died. He doesn't remember her. All he's ever known is Raymond. And Raymond. Raymond remarried 2 years later. A woman named Diane. She was wealthy. Old money. Her family owned land, investments, a whole portfolio of assets that Raymond slid into like a snake into tall grass. They had a prenup, but Raymond found ways around it. He always did. Diane lasted 6 years. Then she was gone too. Heart attack, they said. She was only 53. She'd been healthy. Active. No history of heart problems. But the coroner ruled it natural causes, and that was that. Raymond inherited everything. I should have said something. I should have asked questions. But I didn't. Because he was my son. And you don't want to believe your own child is a monster. So I stayed quiet. I watched. I waited. And I told myself I was imagining things. But that morning, standing in my hallway with Tyler's terrified face burned into my mind, I knew. I knew something was coming. Something bad. I made myself a cup of coffee. My hands were shaking so hard I spilled half of it on the counter. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where Robert and I used to eat breakfast together every morning, and I tried to think. Why would Tyler tell me not to go out? What was he protecting me from? And then, like a punch to the gut, the thought hit me. Raymond. It had to be Raymond. But why? What had I done? I'd always been there for him. I'd defended him when people whispered about Angela's death. I'd stood by him when Diane died. I'd kept my mouth shut and my suspicions buried because he was my son, and that's what mothers do. So why would he want to hurt me? The clock on my wall ticked loudly in the silence. 6:30. 7. 7:30. I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at my phone, waiting for something to happen. And then, at 7:45, it rang. The number on the screen was local but unfamiliar. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I answered. Hello. Is this Mrs. Evelyn Pritchard? The voice was official. Calm. The kind of voice that delivers bad news for a living. Yes. Who is this? This is Officer Dennis Calloway with the Ridgemorne Police Department. I need you to stay calm. Are you at home right now? My blood went cold. Yes. What's going on? There was a pause. Just long enough for my imagination to spiral into 1,000 terrible possibilities. We received a call this morning. An anonymous tip. Someone reported that there was a plan to harm you today. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. What? We're taking this very seriously, Officer Calloway continued. We'd like to send a unit to your home to ensure your safety. Can you confirm your address for me? I gave it to him. My voice sounded far away, like it wasn't even mine. Do you have any idea who might want to hurt you? I closed my eyes. Took a breath. Yes, I said. I think I do. Who? I felt the word catch in my throat, because saying it out loud made it real. And once it was real, there was no going back. My son, I whispered. I think my son wants me dead. Officer Calloway didn't sound surprised. That's what got me. When I said those words, I think my son wants me dead, there was no shock in his voice. No disbelief. Just a quiet, measured response that made my skin crawl. Okay, Mrs. Pritchard. I need you to stay on the line with me until officers arrive at your home. Do not open the door for anyone except uniformed police. Do you understand? Yes. Good. They're about 8 minutes out. Can you tell me why you believe your son might want to harm you? How do you explain something like that to a stranger? How do you condense years of suspicion, gut feelings, and buried fear into a neat little explanation that doesn't make you sound paranoid or crazy? I tried. I told him about Angela. About Diane. About the pattern I'd seen but never spoken out loud. About how Raymond had always been cold, calculating, and how every woman in his life who stood between him and money had ended up dead. And you, Officer Calloway said gently. Do you have assets? Property? Anything he might inherit? I felt my chest tighten. Yes. This house. It's paid off. Worth about $400,000. And I have a life insurance policy. $250,000. Raymond is the sole beneficiary. There was silence on the other end of the line. Mrs. Pritchard, he said slowly, has your son been in contact with you recently? Has he asked about your will or your insurance? I thought back. 3 weeks ago, Raymond had come by for Sunday dinner. It was rare for him to visit. He usually only showed up when he wanted something. That night, we'd sat at this same kitchen table, and he'd asked me about my finances. Casual. Like he was just concerned about my well-being. Mom, you're getting older, he'd said, reaching for the mashed potatoes. Have you thought about updating your will? Making sure everything's in order? I'd brushed him off. Everything's fine, Raymond. Don't worry about me. But he'd pressed. What about life insurance? Do you still have that policy Dad set up? Yes. And I'm still the beneficiary. I'd nodded. He'd smiled. That smile that never reached his eyes. Good, he'd said. I just want to make sure you're taken care of. At the time, I'd thought it was strange. But I'd convinced myself I was reading into things. Now, sitting here with a police officer on the phone telling me to lock my doors, that conversation felt like a confession. Yes, I told Officer Calloway. He asked about it a few weeks ago. Okay. Officers are pulling up to your house now. I'm going to stay on the line until they're inside with you. I heard the crunch of tires on my driveway. Through the window, I saw the flash of red and blue lights. 2 patrol cars. 4 officers. They moved quickly, scanning the street, the yard, the house. One of them knocked. Mrs. Pritchard? Police. We're here to help you. I opened the door. Officer Calloway told me I could hang up now. I did. The officers came inside. They checked every room, every closet, every window. One of them, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, sat down with me at the kitchen table. I'm Officer Laura Finch, she said. I know this is scary, but you're safe now. Can you walk me through everything again? So I did. I told her about Tyler showing up at dawn, about his terror, about the years of suspicion I'd carried like a stone in my chest. I told her about Raymond's marriages, the deaths, the money. I told her everything. Officer Finch took notes. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pity? Belief? Both? Mrs. Pritchard, we take threats like this very seriously. The fact that your grandson came to warn you suggests he may have overheard something. Do you have any way to contact him safely? I can call him. Do it. See if he'll tell you what he heard. I pulled out my phone and dialed Tyler's number. It rang. And rang. And rang. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. A cold dread settled over me. His not picking up. Officer Finch exchanged a glance with her partner. Does he live with your son? Yes. We'll send someone to check on him. In the meantime, I need you to think. Where would your son be right now? Does he have a routine? A job? Raymond worked in real estate. He had an office downtown, but he set his own hours. He could be anywhere. I don't know, I said. He doesn't exactly keep me updated on his schedule. Officer Finch nodded. We're going to need to bring him in for questioning. Do you consent to that? Yes. God, yes. She stood. Okay. We'll handle this. But I need you to understand something, Mrs. Pritchard. If your son is involved in any kind of plot to harm you, this is going to get complicated. Family cases always do. Are you prepared for that? I looked at her. This woman I'd just met. This stranger who was asking me if I was ready to destroy what was left of my family. I'm prepared to stay alive, I said. She nodded. Good. That's all that matters. The officers stayed with me for another hour. They took photos of my house, documented everything I told them, and set up a patrol to drive by every few hours. Officer Finch gave me her direct number and told me to call if anything felt off. When they finally left, the house felt too quiet, too empty. I sat on my couch, staring at the wall, trying to process what was happening. My son wanted me dead. My grandson had risked everything to warn me. And somewhere out there, Raymond was going about his day, not knowing that his plan, whatever it was, had already fallen apart. I thought about Tyler. Where was he? Was he safe? Had Raymond figured out that he'd warned me? The not knowing was unbearable. I tried calling him again. No answer. I tried calling Raymond. Straight to voicemail. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I didn't. Because I'd spent 71 years learning how to hold myself together when everything was falling apart, and I wasn't about to stop now. Instead, I did what I always did when I needed to think. I made tea. I sat at the kitchen table. And I let my mind wander back through the years, trying to pinpoint the exact moment my son had become someone I didn't recognize. Maybe it was when his father died. Robert had been the only person Raymond ever seemed to respect. After the funeral, something in Raymond had shifted. He'd become more distant, more secretive. Or maybe it was earlier. Maybe it had always been there, lurking beneath the surface, and I'd just been too blind to see it. I didn't have answers. All I had were questions and a gnawing fear that wouldn't let go. And then my phone buzzed. A text message. From a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. * Grandma, it's Tyler. I'm okay. I'm hiding. Don't tell anyone where I am. I'll explain everything soon. I love you. *. Relief flooded through me so fast I felt dizzy. He was okay. He was safe. I texted back. * Where are you? Are you hurt? *. The reply came quickly. * I can't say. But I'm safe. I heard Dad talking last night. He was on the phone with someone. He said your name. He said today was the day. I didn't know what to do. I just knew I had to warn you. *. My hands were shaking. * Who was he talking to? *. I don't know. But Grandma, you need to be careful. He's not going to stop just because I warned you. He's going to know it was me. He's going to come after me. *. I felt my chest tighten. * Stay where you are. The police are looking into this. You're going to be okay. *. I hope so. *. And then, nothing. No more messages. I stared at my phone, willing it to buzz again. Willing Tyler to tell me more. But the screen stayed dark. I forwarded the texts to Officer Finch. She called me 5 minutes later. We're tracking the number, she said. And we've got units heading to your son's house now. If he's there, we'll bring him in. And if he's not, then we'll find him. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that the police would fix this, that justice would be served, that everything would be okay. But deep down, I knew better. Raymond was smart. He'd gotten away with murder before, twice, if my suspicions were right. He wasn't going to go down easy. And if he knew Tyler had betrayed him, God help us all. By noon, Raymond was in custody. Officer Finch called to tell me they'd found him at a coffee shop downtown, sitting at a corner table with his laptop open like he didn't have a care in the world. He'd acted surprised when they approached him. Confused. Cooperative. He'd gone with them willingly, asking what this was about, playing the concerned son. We're questioning him now, Officer Finch said. He's denied everything. Says he has no idea what we're talking about. Of course he did, I muttered. We're going to hold him as long as we can, but without concrete evidence, we can't keep him indefinitely. We need Tyler to come forward. We need him to tell us exactly what he heard. He's scared. He thinks Raymond will come after him. His right to be scared, Officer Finch said quietly. But if he doesn't talk, your son walks. And if he walks, Mrs. Pritchard, you're still in danger. I knew she was right. But how could I ask Tyler to put himself in the line of fire like that? He was just a kid. 17 years old. He shouldn't have to be brave enough to take down his own father. But then again, I was 71 years old, and I shouldn't have to be terrified of my own son. I'll talk to him, I said. Good. Let me know what he says. I texted Tyler again. Asterisk, the police have your father. They need you to tell them what you heard. I know you're scared, but this is the only way to keep both of us safe. Asterisk. Minutes passed. Then an hour. I was starting to think he wouldn't respond when my phone finally buzzed. Asterisk, okay. But I want to talk to you first. In person. Can you meet me? Asterisk. My heart raced. Asterisk, where? Asterisk. Asterisk, the old park near Jefferson Street. The one with the pond. Meet me at the bench by the water. 3 p.m. Come alone. Asterisk. I looked at the clock. It was 1:30. I had time. I should have called Officer Finch. I should have told her where I was going. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the fear in Tyler's texts. Maybe it was the need to see him, to look him in the eye and make sure he was really okay. Or maybe it was just the stubborn part of me that refused to let fear control my life. I grabbed my keys and headed out the door. The park was empty when I arrived. It was a cold, grey day, the kind that makes everything feel muted and lifeless. The trees were bare, their branches reaching up into the sky like skeletal hands. The pond was still, its surface reflecting the dull clouds above. I found the bench. Tyler wasn't there yet. I sat down and waited. The minutes dragged by. 3 o'clock came and went. Then 3:15. 3:30. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Asterisk, I'm sorry, Grandma. I can't do this. I'm too scared. Please don't hate me. Asterisk. My chest tightened. Asterisk, Tyler, where are you? Asterisk. No response. I tried calling. It went straight to voicemail. Panic surged through me. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I stood up, ready to leave, when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. It wasn't Tyler. It was Raymond. He stood there, hands in his pockets, a calm, almost pleasant expression on his face. Like we'd just run into each other by chance. Like this was a normal day. Hello, Mom, he said. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, staring at him, trying to reconcile the man in front of me with the little boy I'd raised. Raymond, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? He smiled. That cold, empty smile. Tyler told you to meet him here, didn't he? My stomach dropped. How do you? Because I sent the text, Mom. Tyler's phone has been in my possession since this morning. Oh God. Where is he? I demanded, my voice shaking. What did you do to him? Raymond tilted his head, studying me like I was some kind of puzzle he was trying to solve. Relax. He's fine. For now. He's at home, locked in his room. Grounded, you could say. He'll stay there until I decide what to do with him. The police have been to your house. They're looking for him. They didn't look hard enough, Raymond said casually. And by the time they come back, this will all be over. I took a step back. What are you talking about? He moved closer. Not threatening. Just deliberate. You know, Mom, I really didn't want it to come to this. I hoped you'd just let it go. Live out the rest of your years quietly. But then Tyler had to go and play hero. And now you've involved the police. You've made this so much harder than it needed to be. You were going to kill me, I said, my voice cracking. Your own mother. Don't be so dramatic, Raymond said, waving a hand dismissively. It wasn't personal. It was practical. You have assets I need. And you weren't going to live forever anyway. I was just expediting the process. I felt bile rise in my throat. You're a monster. He laughed. Actually laughed. No, Mom. I'm a realist. People die. Money changes hands. That's just how the world works. You taught me that, remember? You always said, take care of yourself, Raymond. No one else will. I didn't mean. You meant exactly that, he interrupted. You taught me to look out for number one. And that's what I've been doing. Angela was bleeding me dry with her spending. Diane had family who wanted to contest the will. And you? You're sitting on a small fortune while I'm drowning in debt. So yeah, Mom. I was going to kill you. And I was going to make it look like an accident. Just like the others. The others. Angela. Diane. He'd just admitted it. Out loud. To my face. You killed them, I whispered. Of course I did, Raymond said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And I got away with it. Because I'm careful. Because I plan. Because I don't leave loose ends. Tyler's a loose end. Raymond's expression darkened. Tyler's my son. He'll learn to keep his mouth shut. Or he'll suffer the consequences. That's when I realized something. Raymond didn't see people. He saw assets. Obstacles. Tools to be used or discarded. And right now, I was an obstacle. What are you going to do? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Raymond reached into his jacket pocket. For one horrible moment, I thought he was going to pull out a gun. But instead, he pulled out a syringe. Insulin overdose, he said, holding it up like he was showing me a trophy. You're not diabetic, but that doesn't matter. By the time anyone finds you, it'll look like a tragic mistake. Maybe you took someone else's medication by accident. Maybe you were confused. Old people do that all the time. He took another step closer. I bolted. I didn't think. I just ran. My knees screamed in protest, my lungs burned, but I ran. Across the grass, toward the parking lot, toward my car. I heard Raymond behind me. He wasn't running. He was walking. Because he knew something I didn't. I reached my car and fumbled for my keys. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped them. I bent down to grab them, and that's when I saw it. All 4 of my tires were slashed. I told you, Mom, Raymond's voice came from behind me. I plan ahead. I spun around. He was right there, syringe in hand. Don't make this harder than it has to be, he said. And that's when I heard the sirens. The sirens grew louder, and I watched Raymond's face shift from calm confidence to something I'd never seen before, panic. What did you do? He hissed at me, his eyes darting toward the parking lot entrance. I didn't do anything, I said, my voice shaking but defiant. But that was a lie. I had done something. Before I'd left the house, I'd forwarded Tyler's message about meeting at the park to Officer Finch. I'd also tucked my phone into my coat pocket with the line still open. I didn't know if it had worked, if she'd been able to hear anything, but apparently, she had. 3 police cars screeched into the parking lot, surrounding us. Officers jumped out, weapons drawn. Raymond Pritchard. Drop the syringe and put your hands on your head. Raymond looked at the syringe in his hand, then at me. For a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret? No. Calculation. He was weighing his options. Don't even think about it, I said quietly. He smiled. That same cold smile. Then he dropped the syringe and raised his hands. This is all a misunderstanding, he called out to the officers. I was just trying to help my mother. She's been confused lately. I was bringing her medication. Save it for the interrogation room, Officer Finch's voice cut through the air. She emerged from one of the cars, her expression hard as stone. Mrs. Pritchard, are you hurt? I shook my head. No. I'm okay. 2 officers moved in and cuffed Raymond. He didn't resist. He just kept that smile on his face, like this was all some kind of joke. As they led him away, he looked back at me. You're going to regret this, Mom. No, I said, my voice stronger than I'd felt in years. You are. Officer Finch walked me to one of the patrol cars and had me sit down. She handed me a bottle of water. My hands were still shaking so badly I could barely hold it. We got the whole thing on your phone, she said. The confession. The threat. The syringe. It's all there. His not getting out of this. I felt tears prick at my eyes. Not tears of sadness. Tears of relief. Of rage. Of a lifetime of suppressed fear finally breaking free. Tyler, I said. Raymond said he's locked in his room. You have to. We're already on it, Officer Finch interrupted. We've got units heading to the house right now. We'll get him out safely. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat was too tight. Officer Finch crouched down in front of me, her eyes kind but serious. Mrs. Pritchard, I need you to understand something. What you did today, keeping that line open, meeting him even though you knew it was dangerous, it was incredibly brave. But it was also incredibly reckless. You could have been killed. I know, I whispered. But I couldn't let him get away with it. Not again. She nodded slowly. I get it. But from now on, you let us handle it. Okay. Okay. She stood and looked toward the patrol car where Raymond sat in the back seat, his face expressionless. He's going away for a long time. I'll make sure of it. They found Tyler an hour later, just like Raymond said, locked in his room, terrified but unharmed. When they brought him to the station, I was there waiting. The moment he saw me, he broke down. This tall, 17-year-old kid who tried so hard to be brave just collapsed into my arms and sobbed. I'm sorry, Grandma, he cried. I'm so sorry. I should have done more. I should have. Sure, I said, stroking his hair the way I used to when he was little. You did everything right. You saved my life, Tyler. Do you understand that? You saved me. He pulled back, his face red and tear-streaked. He's my dad. I don't know how am I supposed to? I know, I said softly. I know, baby. He's my son. And I don't know how to make sense of it either. But we're going to get through this. Together. Tyler nodded, wiping his eyes. What's going to happen to him? He's going to prison, I said. For a very long time. And that's exactly what happened. Over the next few weeks, the case against Raymond built itself. The police found evidence linking him to Angela's death, tampered brake lines that had been expertly covered up. They exhumed Diane's body and found traces of a rare poison in her system, something that mimicked a heart attack. And then there was the recording of Raymond's confession, his casual admission that he'd killed 2 women and planned to kill me. It was airtight. Raymond's lawyer tried to spin it, tried to claim that I'd entrapped him, that the recording was inadmissible, that his confession had been coerced. But none of it stuck. The evidence was too overwhelming. The trial was brutal. Sitting in that courtroom, listening to the prosecution lay out in excruciating detail how Raymond had planned and executed 2 murders and attempted a third, I felt like I was watching a stranger. This wasn't the boy I'd raised. This wasn't the son I'd loved. Or maybe it was. Maybe this was who he'd always been, and I'd just been too blind to see it. Tyler sat beside me every day of the trial. He didn't have to. He could have stayed away, tried to distance himself from the whole thing. But he didn't. He was there, holding my hand, his jaw set with a determination that reminded me so much of Robert. On the day of the verdict, the courtroom was packed. I held my breath as the jury foreman stood. On the count of first-degree murder of Angela Pritchard, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of first-degree murder of Diane Pritchard, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of attempted murder of Evelyn Pritchard, we find the defendant guilty. I closed my eyes. Felt the tears slip down my cheeks. Tyler squeezed my hand. It was over. Raymond was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 3 consecutive life sentences. He'd never breathe free air again. As they led him out of the courtroom, he looked at me one last time. There was no smile this time. No calculation. Just emptiness. I looked away. If you've stayed with me this far, if you've felt even a fraction of what I felt sitting in that courtroom, then I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button. Because this story isn't over yet. There's more to tell, about what came after, about the price of survival, about the way revenge can save you and destroy you all at once. And if you check the description box below, you'll find even more stories like this one. Stories about people who refuse to be victims. Stories about finding strength when everything falls apart. Now, let me tell you about what happened next. Because the truth is, justice doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like survival. The weeks after the trial were strange. Quiet. Empty in a way I hadn't expected. You'd think I'd feel relief. You'd think I'd wake up every morning grateful to be alive, grateful that Raymond was behind bars, grateful that Tyler was safe. And I did feel those things. But I also felt something else. Something darker. Something that gnawed at me in the middle of the night when the house was too quiet and my thoughts were too loud. Guilt. I know that sounds insane. Raymond tried to kill me. He murdered 2 women. He deserved everything he got. But he was still my son. I'd carried him for 9 months. I'd raised him. I'd loved him. And somewhere along the way, I'd failed him so completely that he'd become a monster. Or maybe he was always a monster, and I'd just refused to see it. I didn't know which possibility was worse. Tyler moved in with me after the trial. His mother's family, Angela's parents, had offered to take him in, but he'd refused. He wanted to stay with me. Said he felt safe here. That we needed each other. He was right. Those first few weeks, we moved around each other carefully, like two people trying to navigate the same grief from different angles. He'd lost his father, not to death, but to something arguably worse. The revelation of who Raymond really was. And I'd lost my son. The person I thought he was, anyway. We didn't talk about it much at first. We'd eat breakfast together, watch TV, go through the motions of normal life. But the silence between us was heavy with unspoken pain. One night, about a month after the sentencing, Tyler came into the kitchen where I was making tea. It was late, past midnight. He couldn't sleep either. "Grandma," he said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." He sat down at the table, his hands wrapped around a glass of water. "Did you know? I mean, before all this, did you know what he was?" I sat down across from him. The question I'd been dreading. The one I'd asked myself 1,000 times. "I suspected," I said finally. "After Diane died, I suspected. But I told myself I was wrong. I told myself that mothers shouldn't think those kinds of things about their children." "But you knew about my mom too," Tyler said. "About what might have happened to her." I nodded, tears burning in my eyes. "Yes. God help me, yes. I knew something wasn't right about that accident. But I was a coward, Tyler. I didn't want to believe my son was capable of murder. So I convinced myself I was imagining things." Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Do you think I'm like him?" My heart broke. "What? No. Tyler, no." "I have his genes," Tyler said, his voice cracking. "His blood. What if I turn into—" "Stop." I reached across the table and grabbed his hands. "Listen to me. You are nothing like him. Nothing. You risked everything to save me. You stood up to him when it would have been easier to look away. You have your mother's heart, Tyler. Angela's heart. And that's what matters." Tears spilled down his cheeks. "I'm scared, Grandma. I'm scared that there's something wrong with me too. That I'll wake up one day and—" "You won't," I said firmly. "Because you know the difference between right and wrong. You care about people. You feel things. Raymond never did. Not really. That's what made him dangerous. But you? You're going to be okay. We both are." I believed it when I said it. I had to believe it. Because if I didn't, what was the point of any of this? Life slowly found a new rhythm. Tyler went back to school. I went back to my routines, grocery shopping, book club, volunteering at the church. People in town knew what had happened, of course. It had been all over the news. Most people were kind, sympathetic. But there were others who looked at me like I was somehow complicit. Like I should have known. Should have stopped it. Maybe they were right. One afternoon, I was at the grocery store when I ran into Helen Bradshaw, an old friend from the church. We'd known each other for 30 years. She'd been at my wedding. Robert's funeral. She knew my whole history. "Evelyn," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I've been meaning to call you. How are you holding up?" "I'm managing," I said carefully. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "It must be so hard. Knowing what he did. I can't even imagine." "No," I said quietly. "You can't." She pulled back, her eyes glittering with something that looked like satisfaction. "Well, I suppose we all have our crosses to bear. But I have to ask, did you really not know? About Angela? About Diane?" There it was. The accusation wrapped in concern. I looked her straight in the eye. "No, Helen. I didn't know. But even if I'd suspected, what would you have had me do? Accuse my son of murder based on a feeling? Turn him in without proof?" "Well, Would you have done that to your daughter?" I asked. "If you'd suspected something terrible, would you have destroyed her life on a hunch?" Helen's face went red. "That's different." "No," I said. "It's not. It's exactly the same. We all want to believe the best about the people we love. And sometimes that blinds us. Sometimes that makes us complicit. But unless you've walked in my shoes, unless you've had to choose between your child and your conscience, you don't get to judge me." I walked away before she could respond. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I felt something else too. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. For years, I'd let people, Raymond, the town gossips, my own fear, control how I felt about myself. I'd carried shame and guilt like weights around my neck. But I was done with that. I hadn't killed anyone. I hadn't plotted or schemed or hurt anyone. I'd been a mother who loved her son and refused to believe the worst about him until the evidence was undeniable. Maybe that made me naive. Maybe it made me foolish. But it didn't make me a monster. Around that same time, I started getting letters. They came to the house, forwarded from the prison. Raymond had listed me as family, which meant he could write to me if he wanted. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday. Tyler brought in the mail and froze when he saw the return address. "It's from him," he said, holding the envelope like it might explode. I took it from him. Stared at Raymond's handwriting on the front. That same careful, precise script he'd used since he was a boy. "Are you going to read it?" Tyler asked. I didn't answer. I just walked to the trash can and threw it away. "Good," Tyler said. But the letters kept coming. One a week. Sometimes two. I threw them all away without opening them. Until one day, curiosity got the better of me. It was late. Tyler was asleep. I pulled the most recent letter out of the trash and opened it. Dear Mom, I know you probably won't read this. But I'm writing it anyway because I need you to understand something. I'm not sorry for what I did to Angela or Diane. They were obstacles. They were in my way. And I don't regret removing them. But I am sorry about you. I never wanted to hurt you. You were never supposed to be part of this. Tyler forced my hand by warning you. If he'd just kept his mouth shut, you would have died peacefully, never knowing what hit you. I would have made sure of that. You would have been spared the pain of this trial, the humiliation of knowing what I am. You would have died believing I loved you. And I did love you, Mom. In my own way. I still do. But love doesn't change what I am. And nothing you could have done would have changed it either. So stop blaming yourself. This isn't your fault. It's just who I am. Raymond. I read the letter 3 times. Then I burned it in the kitchen sink and watched the ashes swirl down the drain. He was wrong. It wasn't love. It was possession. Control. The same thing he'd felt for Angela and Diane. I didn't write back. I never opened another letter. But I kept them. Every single one. Stacked in a box in the back of my closet. I told myself it was for evidence. In case something happened. In case I needed proof. But the truth was, I kept them because some part of me, some small, broken part, still wanted to understand. Still wanted to find the moment where my son had been lost. The moment where I could have saved him. Even though I knew that moment had never existed. 6 months after the trial, Tyler graduated high school. It was a small ceremony, nothing fancy, but I sat in the audience with tears streaming down my face as he walked across that stage. After everything he'd been through, losing his mother as a baby, growing up with Raymond, discovering the truth about his father, testifying at the trial, he'd made it. He'd survived. We both had. After the ceremony, we went out for dinner. Just the two of us. Tyler ordered a burger and fries, and I had the salmon. We talked about his plans for the future, community college in the fall, maybe studying criminal justice. He wanted to be a detective. Wanted to help people the way Officer Finch had helped us. I think that's wonderful, I told him. He smiled. I learned from the best. Officer Finch. No, he said. You. I blinked back tears. Tyler. I'm serious, Grandma. You could have given up. You could have just accepted what was happening. But you didn't. You fought. And you survived. That's the kind of person I want to be. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You already are. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything we'd been through. The fear. The betrayal. The pain. But also the strength. The love. The survival. I thought about Robert. About how much I missed him. About how I wished he'd been here to see Tyler graduate. To see us make it through the darkness. And then I thought about Raymond. About the son I'd lost. The man he'd become. I still didn't have answers. I still didn't understand how someone could become so cold, so calculating, so willing to hurt the people who loved them. But I was learning to accept that maybe I never would. Maybe some things aren't meant to be understood. Maybe some people are just broken in ways that can't be fixed. And maybe, just maybe, survival isn't about understanding. It's about moving forward anyway. If you're still with me, if this story has resonated with you at all, I need you to do something. Share this. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you loved? Have you ever had to choose between loyalty and survival? Because these stories, they matter. They remind us that we're not alone. And you can find more stories just like this one in the description box below. Real stories. True stories. Stories about people who refuse to be victims. Now let me tell you about what happened when I decided to stop just surviving and start truly living again. A year passed. Then another. Life continued in that strange way it does after trauma, simultaneously too fast and too slow. Tyler thrived in college. He made friends, joined clubs, found purpose in his studies. Watching him heal, watching him become the man he was meant to be, gave me hope. But I struggled. Oh, I kept up appearances. I smiled at the grocery store. I attended church. I hosted book club. But inside, I felt hollowed out. Like something essential had been scooped out of me and I was just going through the motions of being alive. The nightmares didn't help. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, drenched in sweat, Raymond's face looming in my mind. Sometimes I dreamed he'd escaped. Sometimes I dreamed he'd succeeded in killing me. Sometimes I dreamed that I'd been the one to kill him. Those were the worst ones. My doctor prescribed sleeping pills. They helped, but they also left me groggy and disconnected during the day. I felt like I was sleepwalking through my own life. Tyler noticed. Of course he did. "Grandma," he said one morning over breakfast, "have you thought about talking to someone? Like a therapist?" I bristled. "I'm fine." "You're not fine," he said gently. "And that's okay. What we went through, what you went through, it's not something you just get over. You need help processing it." "I don't need a stranger telling me how to feel," I snapped. Tyler didn't flinch. He just looked at me with those steady eyes, so much like his mother's. "Then talk to me. Because I can't watch you disappear, Grandma. I can't lose you too." That broke me. I started therapy the following week. Dr. Patricia Henley was in her 50s, with short grey hair and glasses that made her look perpetually concerned. Her office was warm, filled with plants and soft lighting and furniture that seemed designed to make you want to confess your deepest secrets. I hated it immediately. "So, Evelyn," she said in our first session, "tell me what brings you here." I stared at her. "I think you know. My son tried to kill me. Before that, he murdered 2 women. It was all over the news." "I know the facts," Dr. Henley said calmly, "but I want to know how you feel about it." "How do you think I feel?" "I don't know. That's why I'm asking." I wanted to walk out. But I thought of Tyler's face, the worry in his eyes, and I stayed. I struggled to find the words. Angry, betrayed, guilty, confused. I feel like I failed everyone. Angela, Diane, Tyler, even Raymond. I feel like if I'd just been a better mother, maybe none of this would have happened. "Do you really believe that?" Dr. Henley asked. "That you could have prevented Raymond from becoming who he is?" "I don't know what I believe anymore." She nodded slowly. "That's a start." Therapy was hard. Harder than I'd expected. Dr. Henley made me confront things I'd been avoiding for years, not just about Raymond, but about my entire life. About my marriage to Robert, which hadn't been as perfect as I'd remembered. About my relationship with my parents, who'd been cold and distant. About the ways I'd learned to ignore my own instincts in favor of keeping the peace. "You've spent your whole life making yourself small," Dr. Henley said one session. "Quieting your voice. Ignoring your gut. Putting everyone else's needs above your own. That's what made you vulnerable to Raymond's manipulation. He knew you'd never push back. Never question. Never fight." "So it is my fault," I said bitterly. "No," she said firmly. "Raymond's actions are his responsibility alone. But your healing, that's your responsibility. And part of that healing is learning to trust yourself again. Learning to speak up. Learning that your voice matters. It sounded simple when she said it. It wasn't. 2 years after Raymond's conviction, I received a call from the prison. Mrs. Pritchard, this is Warden Tom Bergstrom from Clarkdale Correctional. Your son has requested a visitation with you. You're under no obligation to accept, but I wanted to extend the offer. My first instinct was to refuse. To hang up the phone and pretend the call had never happened. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the need for closure. Maybe it was just the stubborn part of me that refused to let Raymond have the last word. I'll come, I said. I told Tyler about the visit the next day. His reaction was immediate and visceral. No, he said, his face going pale. Grandma. No. You can't go see him. I need to, I said quietly. Why? What could he possibly say that would make any of this better? Nothing. But I need to see him. I need to. I don't know. Face him. Make peace with it in my own way. Tyler shook his head. He'll manipulate you. That's what he does. He'll say whatever he needs to say to get in your head. I know. But I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago, Tyler. I'm stronger now. I can handle it. Tyler looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. Okay. But I'm coming with you. Tyler. Non-negotiable, he said firmly. If you're going to face him, you're not doing it alone. I wanted to argue. But the truth was, I was relieved. I didn't want to face Raymond alone. The prison was exactly as grim as I'd imagined. Grey concrete walls, barbed wire fences, guards with hard eyes and harder expressions. Tyler held my hand as we went through security, neither of us speaking. They led us to a small visiting room with a table bolted to the floor and chairs that looked like they'd seen better decades. A guard stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching. And then Raymond walked in. He looked different. Thinner. Older. His hair was graying at the temples, and there were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. Prison orange didn't suit him. But his eyes were the same. Cold. Calculating. Empty. He sat down across from us and smiled. Mom. Tyler. It's good to see you. Tyler's hand tightened around mine. I squeezed back. Raymond, I said, my voice steady. Thank you for coming, he said, like we were meeting for coffee. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. But you did. That means something. It means I needed closure, I said bluntly. Nothing more. Raymond's smile didn't falter. Fair enough. He glanced at Tyler. You look good, son. College treating you well? Don't, Tyler said through gritted teeth. Don't pretend like we're family. Don't pretend like you care. I do care, Raymond said. You're my son. You tried to kill Grandma, Tyler shot back. You murdered my mother. You don't get to care. Something flickered in Raymond's eyes. For just a second, I thought I saw something real. Something human. Then it was gone. You're right, Raymond said quietly. I don't get to care. But I do anyway. Funny how that works. I leaned forward. Why did you want to see me, Raymond? What could you possibly have to say? He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since he'd sat down. I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was such an absurd statement, coming from him. You're sorry, I repeated. You killed 2 women. You tried to kill me. And you're sorry. Yes. I don't believe you. I know, Raymond said. But it's true. I'm sorry you got hurt. I'm sorry Tyler got hurt. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. Not because I regret what I did, I don't. But because I wish there'd been another way. A way where no one had to suffer. There was another way, I said, my voice rising. You could have not murdered people. You could have been a decent human being. That was always an option, Raymond. No, he said simply. It wasn't. Not for me. The guard shifted in the corner, sensing the tension. What does that mean? I demanded. Raymond leaned back in his chair. You asked me once why I am the way I am. Do you remember? After the trial. You asked what made me like this. And you never answered. Because I didn't know, Raymond said. But I've had a lot of time to think in here. And I've realized something. There's no trauma. No abuse. No defining moment that broke me. I'm just broken. Always have been. And nothing you could have done would have fixed that. Tears burned in my eyes. So what? I'm just supposed to accept that? That you were born evil and there's nothing anyone could have done? Yes, Raymond said. Because it's the truth. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can let go of the guilt. I stared at him. At this man who'd come from my body. Who I'd raised and loved and lost. I don't believe you, I whispered. I don't believe people are just born broken. Believe what you want, Raymond said. But stop blaming yourself, Mom. You didn't make me a killer. I did that all on my own. The visit lasted 30 minutes. When it was over, Tyler and I walked out of that prison in silence. We drove home in silence. It wasn't until we were sitting in my kitchen, cups of tea growing cold in front of us, that Tyler finally spoke. Do you believe him? He asked. About being born broken. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to. Because if he's right, then it really wasn't my fault. But part of me thinks he's still manipulating me. Still trying to control the narrative. Does it matter? Tyler asked. I looked at him. What do you mean? Does it matter why he is the way he is? He's in prison. He's never getting out. We're safe. We're moving forward. Does knowing why change anything? I thought about that. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I guess it doesn't. Tyler nodded. Then maybe it's time to stop looking for answers and just live. He was right. It was time. 6 months after that prison visit, I received another letter from Raymond. But this one was different. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Tyler. Tyler was home from college for the weekend when it arrived. I signed for the certified mail, saw the return address, and my stomach dropped. Tyler, I called out. You have mail. He came downstairs, saw the envelope in my hand, and froze. From him. Yes. I don't want it. You should at least read it, I said carefully. You don't have to respond. But you should know what it says. Tyler stared at the envelope like it was a snake. Then, slowly, he took it from me. We sat together at the kitchen table while he opened it. His hands shook as he unfolded the paper. I watched his eyes move across the page, watched his expression shift from anger to confusion to something I couldn't quite read. When he finished, he set the letter down and stared at the wall. What does it say? I asked softly. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he slid the letter across the table to me. Asterisk Dear Tyler asterisk. Asterisk By the time you read this, you'll be well into college. Probably doing well. You were always smart. Smarter than me in a lot of ways. Asterisk. Asterisk I know you hate me. You should. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But there are some things I need to tell you before it's too late. Asterisk. Asterisk Your mother didn't die the way I said she did. You probably already figured that out. I killed her. But what you don't know is why. Asterisk. Asterisk Angela was going to leave me. She'd found out about some financial things I'd done. Things that would have sent me to prison even back then. She was going to take you and disappear. File for divorce. Turn me in. She had evidence. Documents. Recordings. Asterisk. Asterisk I couldn't let that happen. Asterisk. Asterisk So I tampered with her car. Made it look like an accident. And I got away with it. Just like I got away with Diane. Asterisk. Asterisk But here's the thing, Tyler. The thing I need you to understand. Your mother loved you more than anything in this world. She was trying to protect you from me. She knew what I was. She knew I was dangerous. And she was willing to risk everything to get you away from me. Asterisk. Asterisk She died trying to save you. Asterisk. Asterisk I'm telling you this because you deserve to know the truth. Not the sanitized version. Not the lie I've been telling for 17 years. The real truth. Asterisk. Asterisk Your mother was a hero. And I'm the monster who killed her. Asterisk. Asterisk I know this doesn't change anything. I know you'll still hate me. But I needed you to know that she fought for you. Right up until the end. Asterisk. Asterisk I'm sorry, son. For everything. Asterisk. Asterisk Dad asterisk. I read the letter 3 times. My hands were shaking. Tears streamed down my face. Angela had known. She tried to save Tyler. And Raymond had killed her for it. I looked up at Tyler. His face was pale, his eyes red. "I'm going to throw up," he said. He ran to the bathroom. I heard him retching. I followed, stood in the doorway, helpless. When he finally emerged, his face was blotchy and his eyes were haunted. "He killed her because she loved me," Tyler whispered. "She died because of me." "No," I said firmly, grabbing his shoulders. "She died because of him. Because he's a monster who can't stand to lose control. This is not your fault, Tyler. None of it is your fault." "But if she hadn't tried to protect me?" "She'd still be dead," I said bluntly. "Because Raymond would have found another reason. Another excuse. That's what men like him do. They justify. They blame. They make everyone around them responsible for their own actions. But Angela's death is on him. No one else." Tyler collapsed into me, sobbing. I held him, this boy who'd lost so much, and I let him grieve for the mother he'd never really known. For the hero who tried to save him. For the life they might have had if Raymond hadn't destroyed it. That letter changed something in Tyler. He became quieter, more withdrawn. He stopped going out with friends. Stopped attending his classes. He'd just sit in his room for hours, staring at nothing. I tried to talk to him. Tried to pull him out of the darkness. But he was somewhere I couldn't reach. "I can't stop thinking about it," he said one night. We were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. "About how she died trying to save me. About how I've spent my whole life thinking she abandoned me in that accident. But she didn't abandon me. She was fighting for me." "I know," I said softly. "And I'll never get to thank her. Never get to tell her that I understand. That I appreciate what she tried to do." "She knows," I said. "Wherever she is, she knows." Tyler looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "How do you know?" "Because that's what love does," I said. "It transcends. It reaches beyond death, beyond time, beyond everything. Your mother loved you. That love didn't die with her. It's still here. In you. In the man you're becoming." Tyler nodded slowly. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "I want to see him again." "What?" "No, Tyler." "I need to confront him," Tyler said. "I need to look him in the eye and tell him what he took from me. What he took from her." "Tyler, that's not." "I'm going," Tyler said firmly. "With or without you. But I'd rather go with you." I wanted to say no. I wanted to protect him from Raymond's poison, from the manipulation and the mind games. But I could see in his eyes that he needed this. That he wouldn't heal until he faced his father one last time. "Okay," I said finally. "We'll go together." The second prison visit was harder than the first. Tyler was tense the entire drive there, his jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists. I kept glancing at him, worried he'd lose control the moment he saw Raymond. But when we walked into that visiting room and Raymond sat down across from us, Tyler was calm. Eerily calm. "Dad," he said, his voice flat. "Tyler," Raymond said, surprise flickering across his face. "I didn't think you'd come." "I got your letter." "Ah." Raymond glanced at me, then back at Tyler. And I need you to know something," Tyler said. "My mother didn't die because of me. She died because of you. Because you're a coward who couldn't handle losing control. You took her from me. You took 17 years of memories, of love, of having a mother. And for what? Money? Pride? What was worth her life?" Raymond didn't answer. "I'll never forgive you," Tyler continued. "I'll never understand you. But I'm not going to let you poison the rest of my life. I'm not going to carry your guilt or your shame. That's yours. Not mine." "Tyler." "I'm done," Tyler said, standing up. "I came here to tell you that you don't get to haunt me anymore. You don't get to be the reason I fail or the excuse I use when things get hard. You're just a man in a cage. And that's all you'll ever be." He turned and walked out. I looked at Raymond one last time. He was staring at the table, his expression unreadable. "He's stronger than you," I said quietly. "He's better than you. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that you created something good despite yourself." Then I followed my grandson out of that prison. And I never looked back. If you've made it this far, if Tyler's courage has inspired you at all, then I need you to do something for me. Comment below. Tell me about a time you had to face your demons. Tell me about the moment you decided to stop being a victim and start being a survivor. Because these stories matter. And you can find more of them, real stories, powerful stories, in the description box below. Don't keep this to yourself. Share it. Because someone out there needs to hear it. Now, let me tell you about what happened when I finally decided to reclaim my own life. Not just survive. Not just exist. But truly live. After that second visit, something shifted in both Tyler and me. It was like we'd purged something toxic from our systems. The nightmares didn't stop completely, but they became less frequent. The weight we'd been carrying lightened just enough that we could stand up straight again. Tyler threw himself back into school with a vengeance. He joined the Criminal Justice Club, started volunteering with a victims advocacy group, and even began speaking at local high schools about recognizing domestic abuse and manipulation. Watching him transform his pain into purpose was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever witnessed. As for me, I decided it was time to stop just surviving and start actually living. It sounds simple when I say it like that. But at 73 years old, after everything I'd been through, the idea of truly living again felt almost impossible. I'd spent so long in survival mode, so long just trying to make it through each day, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to actually want something. To dream. To plan for a future that wasn't just about avoiding disaster. Dr. Henley helped me work through it in therapy. What do you want, Evelyn? She asked me one session. Not what you think you should want. Not what would make Tyler happy or honor Robert's memory. What do you actually want for yourself? I sat there in that overly comfortable chair, surrounded by all those damn plants, and I realized something startling. I had no idea. I'd spent my entire life wanting things for other people. Wanting Robert to be happy. Wanting Raymond to be normal. Wanting Tyler to be safe. But what did I want for myself? I don't know, I admitted. Then let's figure it out, Dr. Henley said. It started small. I joined a painting class at the community center. I'd always loved art but never had time for it when Robert was alive and Raymond was young. The first few weeks were frustrating. My hands shook, my lines were crooked, my colors were muddy. But slowly, something started to happen. I stopped caring about making it perfect. I just painted. And it felt good. Then I started traveling. Nothing crazy, just weekend trips to nearby cities, places I'd always wanted to see but never had. Tyler came with me sometimes, but often I went alone. And that was okay. More than okay, actually. There was something powerful about being a woman in her 70s, walking through museums and gardens and historic sites by herself, beholden to no one. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do. Book club meetings where all anyone did was gossip. Church committees that sucked up my time without giving me any joy. Coffee dates with people who only wanted to ask about Raymond, who saw me as a tragedy rather than a person. I said no. And the world didn't end. I also started saying yes. To spontaneous dinners out. To concerts I'd never thought I'd enjoy. To conversations with strangers in coffee shops. To life. One day, about a year after that second prison visit, I met someone. His name was Frank Morrison. He was 76, a widower, with kind eyes and calloused hands from years of woodworking. We met at an art gallery opening. Tyler had dragged me there because one of his professors was exhibiting. Frank and I ended up standing in front of the same abstract painting, both of us tilting our heads trying to make sense of it. I think it's upside down, he said. I laughed. I think you might be right. We talked for 2 hours. About art, about life, about loss. He told me about his wife, Margaret, who died 3 years earlier from Alzheimer's. About how he'd spent those last years caring for her, watching her slip away piece by piece. I told him about Robert. About Raymond. About everything. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. When I finished, I expected him to make an excuse and walk away. Who wants to get involved with a woman whose son is a convicted murderer? But Frank just nodded slowly and said, "That's a hell of a thing to survive." "Yeah," I said. "It is. You must be pretty strong." I laughed, but it came out bitter. I don't feel strong. Most days I just feel tired. "That's what strength looks like sometimes," Frank said. "Just getting up when everything in you wants to stay down." Something in his words, the simple honesty of them, made my eyes sting with tears. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" he asked. I hesitated. The old Evelyn would have said no. Would have made excuses. Would have convinced herself that she didn't deserve happiness, that it was too soon, that people would judge her. But I wasn't the old Evelyn anymore. "Yes," I said. "I'd like that." Frank and I started seeing each other regularly. Nothing serious at first, just coffee, then lunch, then dinners. He was patient with me, never pushing, always giving me space to be uncertain. Tyler was skeptical at first. "Are you sure about this?" he asked one evening when I mentioned I was meeting Frank for dinner. "Sure about what?" "Dating. After everything with him." He still couldn't say Raymond's name most days. "Tyler," I said gently, "I'm 73 years old. I spent 45 years married to your grandfather, and I spent the last several years living in fear of my own son. If I want to have dinner with a nice man who makes me laugh, I'm going to do that." Tyler was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "You're right. I'm sorry. I worry about you." "I know. But I'm okay. I'm actually better than okay." And I was. For the first time in years, I was genuinely happy. 6 months into whatever Frank and I were doing, we never put a label on it, he invited me to his workshop. He lived on 5 acres outside town, with a house he'd built himself and a massive workshop filled with tools and half-finished projects. "This is where I come when the world gets too loud," he said, showing me around. "When Margaret was sick, I'd spend hours out here. It was the only place I could breathe." I understood that completely. He showed me a rocking chair he was making for his daughter's new baby, a bookshelf for his son, a jewelry box for his granddaughter. "You're really talented," I said, running my hand over the smooth wood of the rocking chair. "It's just something to do with my hands," Frank said modestly. "Keeps me busy." "It's more than that," I said. "You're creating things. Beautiful things. Things that will last long after we're gone." Frank looked at me, something unreadable in his expression. "That's the idea. Leave something good behind." We sat on his back porch that afternoon, drinking lemonade and watching the sun set over the trees. It was peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. No agenda. No fear. Just 2 people who'd survived their own versions of hell, sitting together in comfortable silence. "Can I ask you something?" Frank said eventually. "Of course." "Do you ever think about forgiving him? Your son?" I'd been asked that question before, by Dr. Henley, by people at church, even by Tyler. But somehow, coming from Frank, it felt different. Less like judgment, more like genuine curiosity. "No," I said honestly. "I don't think I'll ever forgive him. And I'm okay with that." Frank nodded. "Good. You shouldn't have to forgive someone who tried to kill you. Forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation." "Do you forgive the Alzheimer's?" I asked. "For taking Margaret?" He thought about that. "No. But I've made peace with it. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Forgiveness implies the other party deserves it," Frank said. "Peace is just letting go of the anger so it doesn't poison you. I'm not angry at the disease anymore, but I'll never forgive it for what it took." I understood that too. "I've made peace with what Raymond is," I said slowly. "I've accepted that he's broken in ways I'll never understand. But forgive him? No. Some things are unforgivable. And that's okay." Frank reached over and took my hand. "You're remarkable, Evelyn Pritchard." I smiled. "So are you, Frank Morrison." Around that same time, something unexpected happened. A publisher reached out to me. Apparently, a journalist had written a long-form article about Raymond's case, focusing on the unusual angle of a grandson saving his grandmother from his own father. The article had gone viral. And now a publisher wanted to know if I'd be interested in writing a book about my experience. My first instinct was to say no. I didn't want to relive the trauma. Didn't want to become some kind of tragedy celebrity. Didn't want my pain packaged and sold. But then I talked to Dr. Henley about it. "What if it could help someone?" she asked. "What if your story could reach another woman who's ignoring red flags? Another grandmother who suspects something but is too afraid to act? What if you could save someone the way Tyler saved you?" That changed my perspective. I agreed to write the book. It took me 8 months. 8 months of sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, forcing myself to relive every painful moment. Tyler helped, filling in details from his perspective. Even Officer Finch agreed to be interviewed, providing context from the investigation. We didn't include Frank in the book. That part of my life felt separate, sacred. Something that belonged only to me. When the manuscript was finally finished, I felt simultaneously exhausted and liberated. I told my story. All of it. The good, the bad, the shameful parts I'd wanted to hide. And it felt like closure. The book was published on a Tuesday in October. I didn't have high expectations. I figured maybe a few people would read it, maybe it would help someone, and that would be enough. But within a week, it was on the New York Times bestseller list. Within a month, I was doing interviews on podcasts, morning shows, news programs. Everyone wanted to hear about the grandmother who survived her son's murder plot. Everyone wanted to know how I'd healed, how Tyler was doing, what life looked like now. It was overwhelming. Exhausting. But also strangely empowering. Because for every interview I did, for every story I told, I received messages from people who'd been helped. Women who'd finally left abusive partners. Adult children who'd finally confronted their toxic parents. People who'd been living in fear and found the courage to fight back. My pain had purpose. That didn't make it hurt less. But it made it mean something. One evening, about 3 months after the book came out, I was sitting on my porch with Tyler and Frank. The three of us had fallen into an easy rhythm, Tyler splitting his time between school and home, Frank spending weekends with me, all of us figuring out what this new version of family looked like. "I'm proud of you, Grandma," Tyler said suddenly. I looked at him. For what? For everything. For surviving. For fighting back. For not letting him win. He paused. And for showing me that it's possible to build a life after trauma. That we're not defined by the worst things that happen to us. My throat tightened. You did that too, you know. We did it together. I know, Tyler said. But you started it. That morning when you opened the door for me, when you believed me, when you promised to stay inside, that was when it began. You trusted me. You chose to fight. And that changed everything. Frank squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. "We're going to be okay," I said softly. Not a question. A statement. "Yeah," Tyler said. "We are." And sitting there on my porch, surrounded by the people I loved, I realized something profound. Raymond had tried to take everything from me. My life. My peace. My sense of safety. He tried to reduce me to nothing more than a victim in his twisted game. But he'd failed. I was still here. I was still standing. And I'd built a life that was richer, more authentic, and more meaningful than anything I'd had before. He tried to destroy me. Instead, he'd forged me into something stronger. 3 years after Raymond's conviction, I received a call from Warden Bergstrom. "Mrs. Pritchard, I wanted to inform you that your son has been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The prognosis is not good. He has maybe 6 months, probably less." I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, feeling absolutely nothing. "Okay," I said. "His ask to see you. One final time. I wanted to give you the option before." "No," I said immediately. "Mrs. Pritchard." I said no. I've given him enough of my time, enough of my energy, enough of my life. I'm not giving him my presence at his deathbed. There was a pause. "I understand. I'll let him know." I hung up. Tyler was at school. Frank was at his workshop. I was alone in the house, the same house where I'd lived for over 40 years, and I realized I didn't feel guilty about my decision. I didn't owe Raymond anything. Not forgiveness. Not understanding. And certainly not a deathbed vigil. But guilt has a funny way of creeping in, even when you think you've banished it. Over the next few weeks, I found myself thinking about Raymond constantly. Not the monster who'd tried to kill me, but the little boy he'd been. The toddler who'd brought me dandelions from the yard. The teenager who'd been quiet and strange but never cruel. The son I'd loved before I'd known what he was capable of. I found myself wondering if there'd been a moment, one single moment, where I could have changed the trajectory of his life. Where I could have reached him before he became unreachable. Dr. Henley told me to stop torturing myself. "You're romanticizing his childhood," she said bluntly. You're looking for signs you missed, for moments where you could have intervened. But Raymond was always going to be Raymond. The red flags were there. You just didn't want to see them because he was your son. So I should have known, I said. No, Dr. Henley said firmly. You should stop trying to make his pathology your responsibility. He made his choices. You made yours. And you survived. That's what matters. She was right. Intellectually, I knew she was right. But emotionally, I still struggled. 4 months after that initial call, Warden Bergstrom called again. Mrs. Pritchard, I'm sorry to bother you again. But your son's condition has deteriorated rapidly. He's in hospice care in the prison medical unit. He's dying. And he's asking for you. Begging, actually. Something in the warden's voice made me pause. This wasn't just a routine notification. This was a plea. Why are you calling me? I asked. I already said no. I know. And I respect that. But... He sighed. Mrs. Pritchard, I've worked in corrections for 23 years. I've seen a lot of inmates die. And most of them go hard, angry, defiant, unrepentant. But your son, he's different. He's scared. He's in pain. And he keeps saying your name. I thought you should know. I closed my eyes. It doesn't change anything. I'm not asking you to forgive him, the warden said quietly. I'm just asking you to consider whether you'll regret not saying goodbye. Because once he's gone, that choice is gone too. After he hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Tyler came home from class and found me there, staring at nothing. Grandma, what's wrong? I told him about the call. His reaction was immediate and visceral. You're not seriously considering going, are you? I don't know. Grandma, he tried to kill you. He murdered my mother. He doesn't deserve your goodbye. I know. Then why are you even thinking about it? I looked at my grandson, this brave, beautiful young man who'd saved my life, and I tried to explain. Because if I don't go, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I should have. And I'm tired of giving Raymond power over my thoughts. If I go, if I say what I need to say and walk away, maybe I can finally close this chapter completely. Tyler shook his head. Or maybe he'll manipulate you one last time. He can try, I said. But I'm not that person anymore. I know what he is. I'm not going there looking for closure from him. I'm going there to give myself closure. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, if you're going, I'm coming with you. Tyler. Non-negotiable, he said, echoing his words from years ago. You don't face him alone. Not ever. The prison hospice ward was different from the visiting room. Quieter. Somehow more oppressive. The smell of antiseptic and decay hung in the air. A nurse led us to Raymond's room. He's very weak, she warned. He might not be able to talk much. And please, try not to upset him. He's in a lot of pain. I wanted to laugh at that. Don't upset the man who tried to murder me. But I kept my mouth shut. Raymond looked nothing like the man I'd last seen 3 years ago. He'd wasted away to almost nothing, his skin grey and papery, his eyes sunken. Medical equipment surrounded him, beeping and hissing. When he saw us, his eyes filled with tears. Mom, he whispered. Tyler. You came. We're here, I said, my voice neutral. What do you want, Raymond? He tried to sit up but couldn't. His breathing was labored, each breath clearly agonizing. I'm dying, he said unnecessarily. I know. I'm scared. Something in those words, the raw, childlike vulnerability, cracked something in my chest. Not forgiveness. But something. I know, I said again, more softly. I don't want to die alone, Raymond whispered. I know I don't deserve, I know you owe me nothing. But please, please don't let me die alone. Tyler's hand tightened around mine. I could feel his anger radiating off him in waves. Why should we stay? Tyler asked, his voice cold. You didn't let my mother die peacefully. You made her last moments terrifying. You tried to do the same to Grandma. Why do you deserve peace? Raymond's tears spilled over. I don't deserve anything. I know that. I've known that for years. But I'm asking anyway. Because you're all I have. Because despite everything I've done, you're my family. We're not your family, Tyler said. We're your victims. I know, Raymond sobbed. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked at this broken man in this hospital bed, and I realized something. He was sorry. Not for what he'd done, but for getting caught. For being in pain. For dying alone. It wasn't real remorse. It was self-pity. And I was done with it. I'm going to tell you something, Raymond, I said, my voice steady. And I need you to really hear me. You spent your entire life taking from people. You took Angela's life. You took Diane's life. You tried to take mine. You took Tyler's childhood, his innocence, his sense of safety. You took and took and took, and you never gave anything back. Raymond was crying openly now. And now you're asking us to give you one more thing. Our presence. Our compassion. Our forgiveness. And you know what? No. You don't get that. You don't get to die feeling absolved or peaceful or loved. You die knowing exactly what you are, a murderer who destroyed everyone who ever cared about you. Mom. I'm not finished, I said. I came here because I needed to say this to your face. I spent years blaming myself for what you became. Years wondering if I'd failed you somehow. But I finally understand that I didn't fail you. You failed yourself. You chose to be what you are. And these are the consequences. Raymond was gasping now, his heart monitor beeping frantically. You wanted me here so you could die feeling like you mattered to someone, I continued. But you don't matter to me anymore. You're just a cautionary tale. A reminder of what happens when someone chooses cruelty over love. And when you die, probably in the next few hours or days, I won't mourn you. I won't miss you. I'll just be relieved that you can't hurt anyone else. Please, Raymond begged. Please. I'm your son. No, I said, standing up. You stopped being my son the day you tried to kill me. You're just a stranger who's dying. And I don't owe strangers anything. Tyler stood with me. We walked toward the door. Wait, Raymond called out, his voice desperate. Wait. Don't. But we didn't wait. We walked out of that room, out of that ward, out of that prison. And we didn't look back. Raymond died 2 days later. When Warden Bergstrom called to notify me, I felt nothing. Not relief. Not grief. Just nothing. Will you be claiming the body? He asked. No. What about funeral arrangements? Let the state handle it. I'm done. Tyler was sitting next to me when I got the call. When I hung up, he looked at me with those steady eyes. How do you feel? He asked. Empty, I admitted. But in a good way. Like there's finally room for something other than pain. Tyler nodded. I feel the same way. We sat together in silence for a while. Then Tyler said, thank you for what you said to him. In the hospital. You said everything I wanted to say but couldn't. You could have said it too, I told him. No, Tyler said. I needed you to say it. I needed to see that it was okay to not forgive him. That we don't have to absolve people just because they're dying or because they're family. That sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is walk away. I pulled him into a hug. You're going to be an amazing advocate for victims someday. I learned from the best, Tyler said into my shoulder. Asterisk asterisk, approx. 1,940 words, asterisk asterisk. # chapter 10. The beginning after the end. Raymond was cremated by the state. No service. No mourners. Just ashes scattered in an unmarked plot in a prison cemetery. I didn't attend. Neither did Tyler. Some people in town thought that was cold. Cruel, even. How could a mother not go to her own son's burial? But those people hadn't lived my life. Hadn't faced what I'd faced. Hadn't survived what I'd survived. And I'd stopped caring what people thought. Life moved forward. Tyler graduated college with honors. He got accepted into a graduate program for criminal justice. He started an internship with the district attorney's office, working specifically with family violence cases. Watching him advocate for people who couldn't advocate for themselves, watching him use his trauma to help others, it filled me with more pride than I'd ever felt. Frank and I made it official. Not marriage, neither of us wanted that. But we sold both our houses and bought a new one together, one that belonged to both of us equally. One that had no ghosts, no memories of past lives, just space for the future we were building. My book continued to help people. I received letters and emails almost daily from readers who'd found strength in my story. Some had escaped abusive relationships. Some had finally reported family members to authorities. Some had just found the courage to speak their truth. Each message reminded me that my pain had purpose. That survival wasn't enough. You had to do something with it. On the 5-year anniversary of that morning when Tyler knocked on my door, we had a small gathering. Just Tyler, Frank, Officer Finch, who'd become a friend, Dr. Henley, and me. We didn't call it a celebration exactly. More like a marking of time. A recognition that we'd made it through hell and come out the other side. Officer Finch brought champagne. We toasted to survival, to second chances, to finding family in unexpected places. To the bravest kid I've ever met, Officer Finch said, raising her glass to Tyler. To the strongest woman I know, Frank said, looking at me. To chosen family, Dr. Henley added. Tyler raised his glass last. To my grandmother, who taught me that strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about being terrified and doing what needs to be done anyway. I felt tears prick my eyes. To all of us, I said. For surviving when we weren't sure we could. For building lives when it would have been easier to give up. For proving that trauma doesn't get the last word. We clinked glasses. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Tyler and I sat on the porch. It was the same porch where we'd sat countless times, planning and healing and just being together. Can I ask you something? Tyler said. Always. Do you ever regret opening that door? That morning when I showed up? I looked at him, startled. What? No. Never. You saved my life, Tyler. I know, he said. But you also, your life got so much harder after that. You had to face what he was. Had to testify. Had to live through the trial and the book and all of it. If you hadn't opened that door, if you hadn't believed me, maybe you could have just not known. And I'd be dead, I pointed out. Maybe. Or maybe he would have changed his mind. Or maybe. Tyler, I interrupted gently, there's no version of this where Raymond doesn't try to kill me. If it hadn't been that day, it would have been another day. And if you hadn't warned me, he would have succeeded. So no, I don't regret opening that door. I regret that you had to be the one to knock on it. I regret that you had to carry that burden. But I don't regret surviving. Tyler nodded slowly. I used to have nightmares that you didn't believe me. That you opened the door and told me I was being dramatic and sent me home. And then I'd get the call that you were dead and it would be my fault for not trying harder. My heart broke. Oh, Tyler. But then I'd wake up and you'd be here. And I'd remember that we made it. That we're okay. And the nightmare would fade. I pulled him into a hug. This man, because that's what he was now, a man, who'd saved my life at 17. Who'd faced down his own father. Who'd chosen courage over comfort again and again. You know what the crazy thing is? I said. For all the horrible things Raymond did, for all the pain he caused, he accidentally gave me the greatest gift of my life. What's that? He showed me what I'm capable of. What you're capable of. How strong we are when we're pushed to our limits. I spent 71 years playing small, making myself invisible, avoiding conflict. But he forced me to fight. And I discovered that I'm a fighter. That's not a gift I would have chosen. But I'll take it anyway. Tyler smiled. Mom would be proud of you, you know. Of us. Yeah, I said softly. I think she would. As I write this, I'm 77 years old. Tyler is 25. Frank is 82. We're all getting older, moving toward the inevitable end that comes for everyone. But we're not afraid of it anymore. Because we've learned something important. Life isn't measured by how long you live, but by what you survive and what you build in the aftermath. I survived my son trying to kill me. I survived the trial and the media attention and the public dissection of my life. I survived the guilt and the shame and the endless second-guessing. And on the other side of that survival, I built something beautiful. A relationship with my grandson that's deeper than blood. A partnership with a man who sees me for exactly who I am. A purpose that extends beyond my own small life. Raymond tried to destroy me. He tried to reduce me to nothing more than a victim in his twisted plan. But I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. And there's a difference. Victims are defined by what was done to them. Survivors are defined by what they do next. I chose to fight back. I chose to testify. I chose to write my story and share it with the world. I chose to love again, to trust again, to build a life that's richer and more meaningful than anything I had before. That's what survival looks like. Not perfection. Not the absence of pain. But the choice to keep moving forward anyway. The last time I visited Raymond's grave, and I only went once, about a year after he died, I stood there looking at the unmarked plot and I felt nothing. No anger. No grief. No lingering questions. Just peace. Tyler had asked to come with me, but I'd gone alone. This was something I needed to do for myself. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes. I didn't pray. Didn't cry. Didn't say some dramatic speech about forgiveness or closure. I just acknowledged what was. Raymond had been my son. He'd become a monster. He'd tried to kill me. He'd failed. He'd died. And now he was in the ground, and I was still standing. That was the whole story. Simple. Terrible. True. As I walked away, I felt lighter somehow. Like I'd finally set down a weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, through the fear and the pain and the slow climb back to life, then I want to tell you something important. Whatever you're surviving right now, whatever hell you're walking through, you can make it to the other side. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. You'll have moments where you want to give up, where survival feels like too much work. But you can do it. You can face the monsters in your life, whether they're people or memories or traumas, and you can come out the other side stronger than you ever imagined. Not unbroken. Survival doesn't mean you're not broken. But you can build something beautiful out of the broken pieces. You can create a life that matters, that helps people, that proves that trauma doesn't get the final word. I did it. Tyler did it. And you can too. So subscribe if this story has touched you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And check the description box below for more stories like this one. Stories about real people surviving real horrors and finding real hope on the other side. Because these stories matter. Your story matters. And survival. Survival is just the beginning. My name is Evelyn Pritchard. I'm 77 years old. 5 years ago, my grandson knocked on my door at 6 in the morning and told me not to leave the house. He saved my life. 1 hour later, I discovered that my son wanted me dead. But I'm still here. Still standing. Still fighting. Still living. And that's the greatest revenge I could ever have.